Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. So welcome to, if you attended the first half of this morning's activities, you would have met Justine, who's one of the people that the professional trainers works really closely with at Google, and she would have explained the benefits of becoming a Grow with Google partner. And so in this next segment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to present for you one of the actual trainings that you will have access to as a Grow with Google partner. And I'm going to do a mix of presenting as if I were presenting to your actual audience, as well as some train-the-trainer tips, because part of the goal of this program is for you guys as practitioners to become as comfortable as possible with this material so that you don't always have to rely on your assigned trainer. And it's not that, I mean, the trainers, I love doing what I do, but there are only so many of us. There are thousands of Grow with Google partners. There's some requirements to get a trainer to present for you. So you should be able to, pull up these decks yourself and present them if you have a really small cohort or a last minute sort of situation, without having to be worried about whether your assigned trainer is available or whether the number requirement will not be met. So it'll be kind of like a mix of me presenting as if it was a live audience, as well as giving you guys tips that I have used, that I have found to be effective when I do these presentations myself. Okay, so this is usually your starter slide, right? And I like to use this slide. These presentations are information rich, and I like to use every single slide to impart as much information as possible. So in the beginning slide, I use this slide to introduce the workshop, as well as to explain exactly what the Grow with Google program is. The program has existed for about 4 years at this point, but there's still many people who are unaware, and we really need to get people not only attending the workshops that we present, but also getting into the habit of going to the Grow with Google website and accessing the resources on their own so that they can continue working on their digital skills when they have time. So welcome everyone to today's workshop. The name of this workshop is Digital Skills for Everyday Tasks. If you're unfamiliar with the Grow with Google program, Grow with Google helps people to grow their skills, careers, and businesses by offering free digital skills training and tools. In today's workshop, we will examine how Google's applications can help you to manage your professional and everyday lives remotely. To do so, we'll use a sample exercise. Our sample exercise will be planning a simple event like a virtual company summit, or maybe a big pitch meeting. Some of you who actually have programs, that I think I recognize someone, I was scrolling through, I think I know one of the practitioners that's on here later. Quinton, if this is you, we know each other. I've actually used interns from his program, if I'm thinking of the same person. So I know that in terms of your programs, there's like a specified sort of curriculum that you guys have to prepare your audiences to move forward. And so what I like to do is customize these presentations as much as possible so that they can begin to think of how they can use the material that's being used in their classes or their everyday lives. So you'll have access to the presentation, and it references a pitch meeting or a company summit. To make it more relatable to your audience, you may say organizing your upcoming class project or your group project or whatever you guys are specifically working on. Okay, so we will start by going over Google Docs to create a meeting agenda and notes for a meeting with an event planning team or for your group project. And then we'll end by building a status update presentation in Google Slides. And so you're able to show them how you can use the various tools to actually track progress. And I forgot to say, we actually start by using Google Sheets to track status updates and that sort of thing. All right, so because most of you don't know me, I'll start by telling you a little bit more than what Dan said. I am presenting to you live today from my WeWork location in Harlem. And I've been doing these Grow with Google presentations for almost 2 years now, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. All right, so let's dive in. Here's my contact information after this presentation. If you guys have any questions about anything we went over today, please don't be shy. Feel free to take a snapshot, and you can send me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'd be more than happy to help you with anything that you may have questions about. All right, so setting the stage. Let's be real. We all know that working remotely or learning remotely, in your case, right, I would say, presents its own set of challenges, right? And so to kick off the presentation, we like to share some best practices to help to keep everyone focused so that they can complete whatever task they need to complete. So starting with keeping a routine. It's important to keep a routine because it helps you to stay focused, right? So if you normally wake up, work out, and take a shower before work, keep doing that. Try as hard as you can to maintain regular hours, set a schedule, and try to keep to it. Why is this important? Because keeping a routine helps you to have or maintain a sense of normalcy. Creating a dedicated workspace. Find a spot to go to work in your home at the same place every day. And if you don't have the luxury of a home office, then what you need to do is just pinpoint that little corner in your dining table or your bedroom or wherever, and make sure that that is the spot that you go every day. If you can, make sure that you have whatever supplies that you need to work with to be productive every day in that area so that you're not wasting time getting ready for work or learning on a daily basis. Remembering to schedule lunch and mental health breaks. It's very easy when you're working or learning from home to just sit down for hours on end at the computer. We all know that that's not healthy. So make sure that when you are putting that schedule together, that you actually schedule those mental health and lunch breaks. I mentioned having all the tools you need to be productive, and of course, creating a daily to-do list and checking that list off. And one of the first things that we do in this presentation is actually creating a task list using Google Sheets. So making sure that every day you're actually checking off your to-do list, and at the end of the day, making the list for the next day, because all of these things help you to remain focused. Lastly, but not the least, of course, giving your coworkers or classmates some grace. Right? Working at home means there are going to be pets barking in the background. There's going to be children pestering people. You know, we all went through the e-learning, a year of e-learning for those of us who were parents last year. It's really not easy. And so, you know, we have to, you know, be aware that these things may still be happening. And when people have interruptions, you know, just giving them some grace and remembering that you may need that grace as well, because these things may happen to you. Okay, so this is the agenda. This is what this presentation covers. So today we'll focus on 3 digital skills that can make your everyday work or learning life easier. When you're trying to stay productive at home or learning at home, it can be even more important to keep track of your to-do list and find ways to collaborate with your team or classmates and to keep your organization informed about your progress. So to highlight these business and personal needs, we'll demonstrate several digital skills using an example scenario. Our example will be planning a company event, but keep in mind that these skills and applications can work for a variety of workplace and learning situations. We'll build 3 example projects that demonstrate how to enhance your productivity and make progress on your work immediately after this presentation. So these projects can help you to boost your productivity. And if you, I like to encourage people who attend these sessions, if they can, to try to follow along, because it gives them the opportunities. These sessions are intended to be presented in classrooms. However, we can't do that right now. But if somebody is following along as you do the sessions remotely and they run into problems, this is a great opportunity for them to get live assistance. So in today's lesson, and you would want to make sure that maybe ahead of time people are aware of this, we will get you signed into your Google account and accessing your Google Drive. For those who are unfamiliar, Google Drive is a free cloud-based digital drive where you can store projects, files, and plans. We'll start by showing you how to open some very useful Google applications. And for this lesson, like I said, we'll focus on planning and managing your work using 3 applications, which are Google Sheets, Google Docs, and Google Slides. To complete the lesson, we'll take you through planning the virtual event step by step, as well as give you some hints and tips that will make your life easier. So many of you joining the workshop today may have already been involved in event planning. And, before the current situation, it may have been live events, and now we have morphed into virtual events. Either or, whether it's live or virtual, you are aware that events take a lot of work, they take a lot of effort, there's lots of tasks that have to be completed to make the event successful. And so today we're going to practice the tools that I mentioned in the context of event planning. However, keep in mind that all of these tools can also be used for your personal life. For example, you can use a sheet to create a budget or a job search plan. And you can use a Google document to create a resume or cover letter, design a flyer, or brainstorm for a huge project. In order to get started, however, we first need to access these applications. So we do so by signing into our Google accounts. And to do so, you would open a tab in a new browser, go to google.com or gmail.com and sign in with your Google account credentials. Now, if you have a regular Gmail address, then you have access to all of these applications that we will go over today. If for some reason, which I highly doubt at this point, someone does not have a Gmail account, then you will direct them to sign up for one. It should not take them more than 2 minutes, and they can either go to gmail.com and follow the prompts for creating a new account, or the other way to get there is to go to accounts.google.com/signup. I think gmail.com is usually the easier route for people who are trying to do this live. Okay. So let's talk about all of the things that you can do once you are signed into your Google account. Many of the audiences I find are just used to using their Gmail or maybe Chrome, and they have no idea about the wealth of applications that exist even in free personal accounts. So this is your opportunity as a trainer to kind of expose them to all of the applications that they have aside from what they are used to. So on the screen, the screenshot that we're seeing are of the applications that most people would be familiar with. So we have Sheets, Docs, Slides, Photos, Chrome, and Gmail. If you like, and depending upon the sophistication of your audience, you may want to explain exactly what each application is used for. And so what I do is I would say, if you're familiar with Excel, then Sheets is the Google version of Excel. If you're familiar with Microsoft Word, Documents is the Google version. If you're familiar with PowerPoint, then Slides is that version, the Google version. Photos, most people, especially who have Androids, would be familiar with Photos as photo storage. Chrome is the web browser, and almost everyone would already be familiar with Gmail. However, you should also encourage them to click the More button once they're in their account, because there are actually hundreds of more applications that they would have access to. All right, and so if you know that people are following along at this point, you would ask them to actually go through the next steps with you. So at the top right, select the Google Apps icon. From here, you can access all the Google applications that come with your account. Keep in mind that your most recently used apps will appear first, but you should by all means select that More button at the bottom and become familiar with all of the applications that come with your account. We like to start off with Google Drive. Google Drive allows you to store, access, and share files like your documents, slideshows, forms, and photos in one place. And instead of all of these documents being stored on a computer that can be stolen or lost or can crash, that's happened to me before, Google Drive allows you to upload your documents to the cloud, which is a safe place on the internet. So it doesn't matter if your physical computer, for whatever reason, you can't access that computer anymore, as long as you have access to the internet and you have your login credentials, you're able to access all of your projects in the cloud, whether it be on your phone or a borrowed computer or a computer elsewhere. Okay, so if you've never created anything with Google Apps before, your Google Drive, of course, will be empty. After you start creating projects in Google applications, they will be stored in your Drive. And as we go through the exercises of going through these digital applications, again, encourage them if they can to follow along. One great thing for you to point out about using Google Drive is that you no longer have to worry about saving your projects as you work on them, because everything that you do is automatically saved. Okay. So it's time to dive into the example projects. The first project we will do together is to create a to-do list to track tasks for this big event that we're planning. And in this case, it's a virtual event. So as we all know, the first step to putting together a successful event is putting together a list of all of the tasks that need to be completed, and then assigning those tasks to your team. If you're working on a class project, it will be assigning different team members different duties, so that at the end you guys can come together and have a successful output. Now, while you can create a new blank project for this kind of work, Google Drive offers a library of great time-saving templates. And a template, in case you're wondering why you should bother using templates, a template provides basic information and formatting and keeps you from having to start from scratch every single time when you're creating projects, especially if those projects are similar in nature. Luckily for us, Google Sheets has a template that will fit our to-do list nicely. And what do you know? It's actually called to-do list. To work on this list, you would select New, Google Sheets, and then in the option, you would select From a Template. Now this opens a template gallery with lots of templates for both work or home. In this case, we're going to open the to-do list. Then you will give your to-do list a unique name so that you're able to locate it over time or as you come back to work on this project, right? So you would call it virtual event January 2022 or class project spring 2022, whatever the case is. Now, this becomes the permanent file name and is the way that the document will be found going forward on Google Drive. Notice, and you can have them practice this, that the minute you open the file and you save it and you rename it, it's saved automatically in Google Drive. And that's a really great feature, so you don't have to, worry about, did I save that? This is the most updated version of the document. So notice that this template may look a little different from a blank spreadsheet, and of course that's on purpose, but it still has the same elements. The image on the slide shows a to-do list with a column for tasks, and 3 tasks are listed. Now, the anatomy of a spreadsheet, just in case people are not so familiar, sheets contain many rectangles called cells, and cells are organized into rows and columns. And of course, every cell has a name based on its column and row position. And so in the case of this sheet, column A1 is where the to-do is written. If you guys are wondering why I'm looking that way, it's because I'm sharing the screen that's that way. So sometimes people are like, what is she looking at over there? So just letting you know. Okay, so you can navigate the sheet by clicking in different cells, or you can use the arrow keys to navigate around the sheet as well. You can do just about anything with these sheets. You can add text, formatting, formulas, and functions to the cells as well. Now, because we're using a template specifically designed for a to-do list, there will be some built-in formatting here. And that, again, that's why we use templates, to save us the time of having to worry about formatting ourselves. So you can see there are columns for check marks to indicate if a task is complete, as well as for the deadline of that task. And there's also space for a description of the task as well. To use the template, you will replace the tasks, of course, with things that you need to do for your specific project. You can feel free to copy what you see on the screen or create headings of your own. Notice that when you click into a sheet cell and start typing, you will replace the text that was already there. If you're following along today and you actually have a to-do list that you need to put together, this would be a good time for you to actually start building that sheet live. All right, so here are some additional things you can do. You can add dates. You can also create an additional column, which we'll do next, to assign the tasks to whoever the people will, or the persons will be, who will be responsible for those tasks. So this is what we're going to do. For most events or group projects, it's usually a collaboration, right? Very rarely is there ever one person in charge of doing these things, and it's because it's a lot of work. So let's say you want to collaborate with several people and divide up those responsibilities to get your event going. You can insert an additional column, as you saw on the sheet, and add owner or task owner. And here you would write the name of the person that is responsible for every task. So to walk you through how you actually would add that column, you would click on column C, then click insert and column right. So up until now, we just had 3 columns. We had column A, B, and C. Now we're going to insert column D. And so to do that, once again, and you would repeat the steps for the benefit of the people who are actually following along, and that would be click column C, then click insert and column right. Now you have a new cell, it's called D. In cell D1, you would type a title such as owner or task owner, and then begin to add the names of the people who will be responsible for the individual tasks. Now let's talk about changing the way your sheet looks by changing colors, fonts, and other style aspects of the sheet. Now, the great thing about all of these applications is that even though the templates give you a foundation or a starting point, you're able to customize them so they look any way that you want. So you can change the format of this template to reflect your own style or something about the event. For example, if it's a party for your favorite sports team, you can change the screen to your team colors. Or if it's a meeting at work, you can change the sheet to reflect your brand colors, add logos, that sort of thing. To change the colors in the sheet, and the animation goes a little faster than the directions, which is fine, you would click on a cell, then click the fill color icon, and then simply choose a color from the drop-down list. And you would just go about that process to customize the sheet. I find that if people are following along live, that this is one of the slides where you may have to spend a little more time, because sometimes people are like, the animation is a little quick, so if they weren't paying attention, they miss it. And just so that you know, for all of these demonstrations, when you first do the presentations, just using the animations that Google gives you is absolutely fine. What I do for myself, just to mix things up, and also if I realize that sometimes people are having a hard time not actually seeing this live, like a lot of people need to see things live, like animations and things, they don't really connect, is that sometimes I replace the animations that Google has in this presentation, and I just go live to a Google Sheet that I have in my Google Drive, and I actually show them. And I find that many times that is where the connection happens, especially if they're following along themselves, because it's kind of like an apples to apples comparison, as opposed to looking at what's going on the slide. So that's just a tip for as you become more familiar with the material. Going live, I have found always does a really good job of getting people not being shy to try things and actually sharing and actually seeing how this all works. Okay, so the sheet will automatically be saved to Google Drive, which should be open in Chrome. And so you can navigate between the sheet and any of the other applications that you are using, so that you're actually able to continue to update your project list. All right, so now remember the list of owners that we created in our task list. Imagine that you're going to ask all of those people to attend a virtual meeting and help you to plan this event. One way to have a useful and productive meeting is to have an agenda. We all know this, right? So an agenda, as well as really in-depth notes that everyone can access so that they're all on the same page. So using Google Docs, you can create and share meeting notes and even collaborate in the same document from anywhere at the same time. Just like we did with the sheet, we're going to start off with a template to help with some of the overall and basic design elements. All right, so this is how we would access the Google Docs version of a template. You'll go to Drive, you will select New, then Docs, once again from a template, and then choose one of the available templates for notes. Okay, and so there's several meeting notes templates. You can take a really quick look and then open a meeting notes template that you want to use that fits your purposes. So once again, the template will open in a new tab and it will automatically be saved to Google Drive. And then to check in to make sure people are paying attention, you may want to say something like, once you open a template or blank document, what is the first thing that you should do? Right? And if they're paying attention, they'll say, rename the document so that it's easy for us to find it going forward. And then you would say, yes, good job. Okay. So all the templates for this style of document have the same basic information. So your meeting dates, your list of attendees, your agenda, your notes, your action items, and of course, items for the next meeting. You would click the placeholder text, right? So again, template is just foundation document, and replace that text with information that is relevant to your specific meeting that you're going to have. So similar to the spreadsheet that we did first, you are able to format this document to fit your needs. You can select the text and change it from a numbered list to a bulleted list. You can do things like change the font sizes and colors, right? You can even insert pictures, anything that you need to really make this document into a document that will be a working document and helpful to your team. Additionally, you can add comments to the document to make notes about things without changing the text. For example, you might want to quickly add a comment about what to add to the meeting agenda, but actually write the agenda later. Or you may want to add a reminder to ask a coworker or teammate a question during the meeting. To leave a comment, you would select text in the document, and you can select either a word, a sentence, or even just a character. Then click the plus button on the side of the page or open the insert button and choose comment. And again, you can see how actually doing this live, once you become more comfortable, will help the learning process, because people will actually see you go into an actual document and actually complete the motions. In the box that appears, you would type the comment. All right. So on the screen that we're seeing, we can see that the user did exactly this, and the note that she has made on the document reads, we need an update on the budget. Okay, and so what happens is that anyone who has access to this document will have access to all of those additional comments that are made, and everybody's on the same page. Here's a great trick that makes collaboration much easier. If you add a comment for someone else, you would type the plus sign and then their email address. What happens is that Google Doc will send an email to that person with a link to the document so that they're able to see the comment that's directed to them. So for example, if I wanted my coworker or teammate to fill in the agenda before the meeting, I can do the following. Add a comment, then add a plus sign and their email address, right? And I would assign the comment to them. So assigning the comment lets them know that they are responsible for resolving it, whether it's actually putting the answer in the document or doing some research and coming to the meeting prepared. That person knows when you assign the comment to them that they have to do something, not just read it. All right, so once you decide whether or not to assign the comment, you would select comment to add it to the document. All right, and so in this case, and it's a little hard to read, we see that Yara has actually assigned this document to someone by putting their email address. And so what happens is that that person will then get a notification in their email that lets them know that they're responsible for doing something about that comment. All right, let's talk about the different ways that we can share access to your digital documents. So one of the most useful features of Google Docs and many of Google's applications is the ability to collaborate at the same time without having to worry about version history. And we've all, here I like to add funny stories, if they're applicable, about back in the day before things like this were possible, and going back and forth with team members, and you're like saving documents in v.1.34567 format, and then emails cross, and people are making changes to different versions of the document, and at the end of it, nobody knows what's current, so you have to start over. No need to worry about any of that anymore because everything here is saved in real time. So with Google Docs, thank God, you can collaborate on projects with anyone on the same central document, right? And to do so, what you have to do is give access to that document to the people who will be actively working on the project or whatever it is. So these are the steps for sharing a document so that you can collaborate in real time together. You would select share in the upper right corner, type that person's email address in the box. And again, you want to encourage them to do a lot of these actions if they can. And so in the classroom settings, like students can actually practice sharing documents with each other. Sometimes there's solo learners, like people just joining these webinars from different places. They're not really part of a team. And so most of us have at least 3 email addresses. So you can just encourage them to email the document to their second address so they can get a feel for how this actually works. All right, so next, after you decide who you're sharing the document with, you are able to grant permissions in terms of what can be done to these documents. And so you will explain the 3 levels of permissions. So can edit allows the person to edit the document directly. And so why would someone have can edit access? If someone is helping you to take notes for the meeting, they will need editing access, right? That makes sense. Can comment allows a person to comment, so they would respond in the comment box on the side, but they will not be able to actually, edit the body of the document, but they'll be able to maybe like respond to questions or things like that. And then can view allows a person to see the document, but not make any alterations at all. So for example, this could be a volunteer for the event or a person who is involved in the planning, but who does not need to make any changes or know specific details about what's going on. Notice the box at the bottom labeled notified people. And when you share the document, and by the way, you can share documents, sheets, presentations with someone, and you leave that box checked, that means that they're automatically notified in their email. Okay, this is a really, really great feature, and especially good and useful for collaboration while we're all working remotely. So moving on to sharing different files and giving different levels of access. When you store files in your drive, you can give access to different files to different people. So maybe you created that draft agenda for the event and you want everyone in the event planning committee to have access to that. And that's the path that you're seeing on the left side of your screen. But maybe you have a budget file and you only want one person to have access to that file. This is confidential information. And that's the path on the right side of the screen. And the more good news is that you can give different people different levels of access to these files. People can either have access to edit a file, comment on a file without editing, or just view the file. So very similar to what we just went over. You can also give people access to complete folders. The word of caution here is that if you give access to a folder, all of the documents in that folder are viewable by the people who have access to that folder. So you would want to just remind them that if you're sharing folders, that they are absolutely sure that the people who the folders are shared with are, they're okay with them seeing all of the files that are located in those folders. All right, and I find that here as well is where people, if they're following along, may have questions. Okay, so we are now literally in the middle of the presentation, a little past the middle actually. So this is an opportunity usually for you to, if people have not been asking questions, for you to stop and do a quick check-in and make sure that everybody is on the same page in terms of understanding what has been covered. Okay, so moving on to the final application, which would be Google Slides. Now imagine that you have planned your event using your to-do list. You've collaborated effectively with your team using docs for your meeting agendas and notes. And next, you might need a way of communicating effectively with a large group of people. For example, you may need to give an entire organization an update in a classroom setting. You may need to present it, right, to your instructor. Or in business settings, you may be pitching a new business to a possible investor, and you need to put together an engagement presentation. For these situations and for plenty of others in the workplace or learning environment, you can build a presentation using Google Slides. Even if your event is just a small team meeting, using a slide deck can help everyone to stay on track and on pace and to engage them with the information that you have put together. So we will move on to our third application for today, third and final application. And we will use Google Slides to put together a pretty simple but informative presentation to share your progress or ideas at work. Now, you can start from a blank deck, or, and this is another way to engage them, what else can you do? So there's always the blank option, or you can select, and most people have been paying attention would say from a template. And you'll say absolutely right. Google Slides offers several templates for common purposes. So as with our other projects, we're going to start off with a template to help with some of the overall design and basic elements. Once again, we start from Google Drive. You would select New. This time you would select Google Slides. So far we've done Sheets, Docs. Now we're doing Slides from a template. And once again, this opens the Google Slides template gallery. And here you will find options for all kinds of presentations that you want to give, like possibly presenting your research at a professional conference, delivering a sales pitch, teaching a lesson, delivering a class project. You will go through the templates and open the template that you want to use. For the purpose of today's session, we'll start with a status report template and build a really quick example project for updating an organization of all of the work that you have done remotely. Once again, your template will open in a new tab and automatically saves to Google Drive. So you must remember to do what? Rename it. By now, most people who are paying attention, they already can tell you the steps, right? As you can see, this template has built-in categories designed to update a stakeholder on deadlines, road bumps, and your team's accomplishments. I love the animations. Different templates include different categories, slide layouts, colors, and designs. So if you've never seen for all of these applications the templates before, it's actually worth it to go through them so that you can kind of like visualize what they look like. And as you work on projects, you would know, well, this one has these, options or whatever, and these are the best templates to use for these specific campaigns. Again, you can edit the text on the slide to explain the purpose of the presentation, and you can also move the text boxes as well as the shapes that the templates come with and customize it to fit your individual needs. Every template includes pre-designed layouts. And again, you should take a look at all of them and only select the ones that make sense based on the information that you need to impart for your audience. Now, to add a new slide, you would just add a new slide and then select the specific layout for the slide. So this becomes really helpful over time, right? Because instead of you thinking, oh my God, how am I actually gonna display this information in a way that's attractive, you can just choose one of the built-in layouts for the slides that are applicable for you. So in this case, we're seeing a slide that highlights a specific percentage. And of course, this is not going to be applicable to every single presentation, but in most presentations, there's some sort of percentage call out, and you would just use that. As you build out the presentation, you may want to demonstrate information or ideas with a visual. The great news is that you can add images and videos to get your audience's attention. For example, if your presentation is a new employee onboarding training, you might include a photo of your team or your workplace. Or for a budget update presentation, you can link a chart or graph from a Google Sheet. To add these elements, you will access the Insert menu, and you can call out exactly where the insert is. Again, when you're doing this live, you have the ability to actually go through the steps a little more and choose the kind of visual element that you want to include. All right, and then you can actually explain what happened if you're using the animation. And so we can see that the user added an image to the slide, and to do so, they selected Insert. They searched the web for an image labeled marketing, and they chose an illustration of a person typing on the computer. Word of caution with that, you should advise people not just to go to Google and start downloading images that they see and using them. There are lots of image-free websites or services they can subscribe to for free. They have the free version and the paid version because you want to make sure that you are not using any sort of copyrighted images in presentations, even if they're just for school or learning, you know. Part of the information that we share is not only about Google best practices, but just digital best practices in general. So we don't want people going to Google and getting themselves in trouble. You can also add visuals directly from your hard drive if you have your own pictures, your own videos, as long as they're saved on your computer or uploaded to Google Drive. You can also add those to the presentation so that to make it more rich. And in case you don't have access to any of that, the slides application also comes with an image gallery, and you can use those images and rest assured that they will be royalty free. So at this point, you've built a slide deck to support your presentation, right? So it's kind of like we fast forwarded everything that we've done. We've selected layouts, customized text, and added charts, images, and other visuals to enhance our presentation. Now, like we did with the other applications, it's time to share the presentation. Now, you might want to share the slide deck with your team for them to give their input, or you can make it available to everyone who will be in the audience. You can even embed these presentations on a web page. And again, you will walk them through the process for sharing. To access these settings, use the share icon, just like you did with Google Docs or Sheets, typing a colleague's email address and decide what kind of, again, engagement access to give them. At this point, most people get it. Or you could get the sharing link to add it to other files or documents. We're almost out of time today, but I hope that you're feeling more comfortable with sheets, documents, and slides. In this short period of time, we examined the following: opening your Google Drive, creating a to-do list from a template, adding tasks, dates, and owners to the sheet, and adding formatting to your sheet. We also opened the Google Docs template for a meeting agenda or notes agenda, whatever you want to call it. And you saw how to change the placeholder text in the template, customize the colors, add comments, as well as share your document. Finally, we built a status update presentation using Google Slides. You saw how a template can make your slide deck look polished and professional, and we looked at how to use some of the customized layouts for your unique presentation. Google Docs and Google Sheets can get you started with useful projects for both your personal and professional lives. For example, you can build a resume using a template in Google Docs or design a budget in Sheets. Google also offers several other applications that we encourage you to explore. And this slide shows you some of them that we feel that will be beneficial to most people. So you can use forms to create surveys to collect feedback from others, slides to design presentations, we went through that, calendar to create appointments and book meetings, and Google Meet to video conference and meet with people remotely. We have barely scratched the surface of all of the features that Google has to offer. And I hope that during the presentation, you've been thinking of ways that you can use these digital tools to simplify your personal and professional life. We want you to leave this workshop with a clear sense of what you should do next. So here are a few ways to move forward. Visit docs.google.com and review possible templates you might use for work. Also, check out the additional templates available in Google Sheets. And finally, consider some of Google's other professionalization workshops to continue to grow your learning or your career on your own time. Let's take a look at a few of those before we go. Today, we touched on a few of the collaboration features Google has to offer. To get more in-depth training on these tools, Google offers free Google Workspace training. Anyone can complete all of the Google Workspace training at no cost through Applied Digital Skills. And Applied Digital Skills, in case you're unfamiliar, is an online platform for digital learnings. Some lessons may be labeled workspace certification. Please note that certification is not a requirement. You can just go through all of the lessons to learn how you use the tools. However, if you are using this as an upskilling opportunity, then you may consider actually taking the certification exam. You can visit the Google Workspace Learning Center to find answers to all of your workspace questions as well. And the URL to access the Learning Center is g.go/grow/workspace-help. If you want to sharpen your business and marketing skills, check out Primer. This is a free app that's available for both Android and Apple devices. And here you can find a series of short fun lessons that are less than 5 minutes each. Now, we introduced a lot of different training options in this workshop. To access them in one location, visit the Grow with Google website at GROW.GOOGLE.com. The courses here are categorized based on the kind of person that may be accessing the site. So you'll find information and training resources for small business owners, job seekers and students, veterans and military families, educators, developers, and startup. Now, this is the slide that most people are the most interested in. And so that you can encourage them when you send a copy of the presentation, it's the last slide, slide number 40. And here is where they can go to the micro websites that focus specifically on all of the applications and the resources that you covered in the presentation. Okay, and so that is the official end of digital skills for everyday tasks. We have about 4 minutes to spare. So if any of you guys have any questions, I'd be more than happy to take them now.
Thanks so much, Petia. There's actually a couple of questions that came through the chat. Okay. I'm going to start with one that was posed by, let me see here, by Richard Santana. Maybe he can explain. Right to use free images. I don't know if Richard wants to elaborate a little bit more what he meant by it.
I'm sorry, it was a typo. What I wanted to know is if you could provide the website so that we could use the free images.
There are hundreds of them. Like literally, you can just Google, no pun intended, royalty-free images. The one that I have used is called Pixabay, Pixabay.com. You can set up a free account and you can, for the royalty-free images, you can download them as much as you like.
Can you spell
Thank you.
that website?
Pixabay, I'll put it in the chat. Pixabay, hold on. Pixabay.com. And let me send it to everyone in the meeting. That's one of them, but there are literally hundreds of them, you guys. They have royalty-free pictures that you can use.
Great. Thanks so much, Petia. Two other questions. One, can we share documents with people who have other than Gmail addresses? And the other question is, when presentation slides are emailed, does a person receiving them have to sign to their Google account to view the presentation? I know Dan attempted to respond, but maybe you can provide more clarification.
Okay, so just remind me, the first half of the question was, could you invite people? Yes, absolutely. You can invite people who don't have Gmail addresses to view documents. They would just have to, if you're sending them, the documents in like Google Slides or Google Doc format, they would just have to register their existing email address as a quote unquote Google account. So for example, my agency email is patia@thestylistagroup.com, and many people share Google documents with me at that address. So I have just registered my patia@thestylistagroup.com email address with Google. So that allows me to access any sort of Google documents that are sent to me at that address. Okay, so that was the first half. And then the second half of the question was, are they able to open it? Well, yes, as long as they register whatever email address that you're sending to them as with Google or as a Google account, they'll be able to then open the documents in Slides or Docs or wherever, however you sent them.
Thank you so much.